Elliot Friedman links Jake Guentzel to the Edmonton Oilers, as well as the Toronto Maple Leafs have shown great interest in a KHL superstar, and we'll break it all down for you coming up on this episode of Hat Trick HQ. But before we get into it, just want to say that 78.9% of you guys watch this aren't subscribed, so if you love the NHL just like all of us here, make sure you go down below, hit that subscribe button. We're on the road for 3,000 subscribers, and really appreciate it if you're not subscribed already to go down, hit that subscribe button. But with that said, let's get right into the first topic of the video today, which is Guentzel linked to the Oilers. And as we take a look here from Elliot Friedman on his 32 Thoughts podcast, he said about the Oilers and their deadline plans, if Guentzel is available, my opinion is that's their guy. That's the guy they'd like to get. And as we take a look at Jake Guentzel, obviously this guy has been, a great player here in the NHL during his time in Pittsburgh. This season with 51 points through 49 games, 22 goals, 29 assists. And, it's a guy who can play great defensively as well, as we see here with 20 blocks, 34 hits so far on the season. And as we take a look, he is in the final year of his contract at $6 million AAV. So, you could get this guy in as a rental, maybe get him in and, extend him, which is probably what the plan will be if they do go forward with this trade. But as we take a look at the current Edmonton Oilers, top 12, we see here that, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, McDavid, Hyman is their top line right now. And if you bring in Guentzel, who is playing on the left wing, this could be a guy that maybe you slot in here on the second line with Leon Draisaitl to kind of provide a little bit more scoring throughout that second line, or you could really test him up here with McDavid on the top line with Zach Hyman and Mark. I mean, this would be huge for the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, they're looking for some depth scoring throughout their lineup here going into a playoff push, and bringing in a guy like Jake Guentzel could really help provide an offensive spark to this team.
Yeah, bringing a guy like Jake Guentzel to any team would just honestly push them over the top, especially when you look at a team like the Oilers. They are one of the hottest teams in the league right now. They were riding a winning streak for quite some time. They fought their way back into a playoff spot. I'm not saying they're the top team because that is the Vancouver Canucks. I know everyone's going to hate me for that, especially the Oilers fans. But the big thing with this is prying them out of Pittsburgh is going to be the biggest issue. You see Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh. He's looking at making this team back into a contender team. I know the team's old. They're struggling a little bit from out of the gates into the midway point of the season. So getting them out of Pittsburgh, I think, is going to be the most challenging. It would have to be quite the package and something that you'd almost have to overpay to prime out. Yes, Pittsburgh is strapped with cap. Yes, they're looking to kind of retool and make the playoffs at the same time, which is a little complicating. But moving a guy like Jake Guentzel could almost disgruntle a guy like Evgeny Malkin, and especially a guy like Sidney Crosby that has played with Guentzel for quite some time. So I think if the dominoes fall the right way, I think the Oilers are heavily going to pursue him. I mean, we've seen reports coming out that they're in on guys like Jordan Eberle. They're looking at David Perron if a team like Pittsburgh does, or Detroit falls out of the contention as well. So maybe if Guentzel does become available, I can really see the Oilers and Ken Holland really throwing quite the package to bring this guy in. Like you said, use him as a rental, and then during the offseason, worry about the extension, then lock him up long-term, and just run this in and hopefully creating a dynasty for the city of Edmonton.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think bringing in such a great offensive talent here in Guentzel would really help this team get over that hump that they've kind of struggled to get over in the playoffs in recent years. With the best player in the world on your team, you want to win a cup while he's there and keep him happy. So you kind of got to put the pieces around this guy to make sure that this happens. And bringing in Jake Guentzel, yes, it may cost you a lot, but it will be worth it in the long run. And as we've seen from Elliot Friedman talking about the assets that they have to bring in this guy, they do have their first rounder for this year, but they might have another good asset here in Philip Broberg. He's playing 25 minutes a night in Bakersfield in the AHL, and he's playing extremely well. So I'm curious to see what happens there. And the big thing about Philip Broberg here is he is a former first round draft pick as well, so you're kind of getting two firsts in this this instance here, going back to Pittsburgh. You may have to throw some guys in here to match the cap. I believe right now there are about $2 million in cap space heading into the deadline, and they're going to have to come up with $4 million extra here to maybe to make the cap work in this situation. But I do think, like you said, this could really help the Penguins retool here. They get two great assets that they could really flip at the deadline to kind of make this team turn around and try to gain a playoff spot.
Yeah, the big thing is, like we've seen the reports come out, there was a video that we put out just a few days ago where the Oilers are looking at upgrades at every position. I know they want wingers, centermen, defensemen, they want a goaltender. They really want to add everything, especially with this recent surge. They know they can contend, and they know this team is good enough to compete for a Stanley Cup. So getting a guy like Guentzel might cost a tiny bit more. Yes, a first and Broberg sounds like a lot, but you're looking at a lot of these teams that are really putting out a lot of offers. You're going to see so many teams in on a guy like Jake Guentzel. I mean, if you look at Calgary itself, Chris Tanev's market's sitting at just about a second or first round pick. This is an older veteran that is a defenseman, so it is a little harder to gauge the value this wise. But you're looking at a young star coming out of Pittsburgh to go into the Edmonton lineup. So maybe you have to throw in more picks, more prospects, whatever it might cost. The big thing with a cap, though, is since it's closer to deadline, the total cap is not going to be $6 million. So they might be able to squeeze this out with only moving just say $1 million in salary. It's not going to be a thing where they have to move a guy like Jack Campbell to fully bring in a guy like Jake Guentzel, though I'm sure if Pittsburgh would take him on, the Oilers would 100% dish him off. So it's going to be interesting, and the next month is going to really just kind of tell the tale of how committed the Oilers are to making this final push of adding players and going for the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, like you said, things are really going to start to ramp up here in Edmonton. They're looking to add a lot, and Ken Holland and the Edmonton Oilers are going to be looking at every option, and I really do think they will be heavily invested in Jake Guentzel here, and I really hope that we do see him come to the Oilers, because this would really provide a great spark for this organization and give them a great push in the playoffs here. And I know a lot of people want to see McDavid win a cup, but it'll be interesting to see when Vancouver and Edmonton meet in the playoffs, because I can't wait for that series. That's going to be a fun one to watch. But we're going to get into our second topic of the video here today, and that is Leafs meet with KHL star. And as we take a look here, Cloak from The Athletic reports that Tsyplakov and his agent met with the Maple Leafs over Zoom last week. Among the topics of conversation during the Zoom call was Tsyplakov's positional fit with the Leafs and whether he could play center next season. He also said the other topics during this meeting included Leafs management selling Tsyplakov on Toronto as a living destination. And as we take a look here from friend of the show, Kyle Cushman, he kind of did a little breakdown here on Maxim Tsyplakov. If you've never heard of this guy before, I mean, Tsyplakov's nearly doubled his KHL career goal total with 30 on the season, 32 in his previous 262 games. He also says here he's a bit wary of the 19.9% shooting rate, a significant jump in his career average, and he's not a guy that has a history of significant production in the Russian junior leagues. But he also says here, that being said, there are some intriguing tools here. His top speed in the KHL would rank around the 97th percentile versus NHL edge data, which would be around Bobby McMahon. He said he's the fourth in forward hits in the KHL this season. But he says, from the little bit I've seen today compiling clips, he's a big body, 6'3", 200 pounds, that has some hands, and he is a good finisher, but doesn't create a ton for himself or others. Seems like a fourth line depth winger who could pop some goals. His ideal comparison would be William Carrier. And as we take a look, this is from the Athletic article. They say what makes Tsyplakov intriguing for the Leafs brass is the combination of his frame and scoring ability. His size and penchant for driving to the net and getting into difficult areas of the ice could give his powerful game a chance to translate in the NHL. And they say from one of the Athletics prospect gurus here, Scott Wheeler, he says, big, strong, athletic kid, holds the puck well, strong skater, good snapshot and wrist shot, likes to curl and drag, likes to shoot it, straight line type, direct, attacks into defenders for a shot, engaged physically. What you see is what you get, not a lot of layers, problem solver type. And Mark, I know that is a lot to kind of take in here when you're breaking down a guy like Maxim Tsyplakov, but we had to do that for you guys because I know a lot of you guys may have never heard of this guy, and I think this guy has a great potential here to come into the Leafs next season, kind of sign a one-year deal and prove his worth in the NHL and play in the bottom six for the Leafs and pop some goals.
The biggest thing with Tsyplakov that I kind of look at is 31 goals in the KHL is not an easy feat. You're saying this is a lot of professional guys that have played in the NHL in numerous leagues, all competing at Russia's highest level. So 31 goals does look great. I know a lot of people are going to say William Akaria. That seems a little weird. But if you kind of look at his junior stats, he was an outstanding goal scorer before he made it to the NHL. It never really translated. So if we do get a guy like Tsyplakov come into Toronto, he could really kind of round out the middle six, in my opinion, especially if you retain a guy like Max Domi, who is an incredible playmaker. You put a guy that can't really create his own shot too much on his own next to an incredible playmaker, and I think it would look outstanding. And I think he could be a really viable option for the Leafs to bring in, be a cheaper option than a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi might demand if he ever gets his goal scoring up. So maybe having this guy on the line with Tavares or Nylander, if he can translate to center, maybe you look at use him as a third line center, promoting Domi to the middle of the second line and move Tavares to the wing. Well, he's still kind of losing his speed a tiny bit, but he's still an incredible player. So it gives so many options to use this guy to kind of plug and play. He kind of reminds me of a Kelly Yarncroke where you can put him into the top six, middle six, bottom six, and he seems like a guy that will produce, especially getting on North American ice and just getting a season under his belt.
Yeah, he's a guy who's going to go out there and throw the body too. It's not just his goal scoring. He's great at picking up for his own teammates. He throws his weight around out there, 6'3", bigger body there. And I think maybe throwing this guy on the third line next year, maybe with a young rookie in Easton Cowan, could be a really interesting option.
Yeah, having a guy like him, Max Domi, and Easton Cowan, that would be a bit of a chaos line if you ask me. They would really just pound everyone in the corners and just offensively. Defensively, it might struggle a tiny bit, but I mean, right now, Easton Cowan's looking like one of the best penalty killers in the juniors. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can make the transition, if the Leafs can actually get him signed. Like you said, he had a 1 hour Zoom call. He's doing his due diligence to check out what the city of Toronto can offer, what this team can offer, and where the Leafs go into their supposed cap crunch, where it's not too much of a cap crunch, but everyone likes to say it is. Bringing a guy like this in on a 1 year deal could really benefit the Leafs, and especially a guy like Brad Treliving that you can see wants to bring in some speed, skill, but still wants to add this Western Conference just kind of size to this team. We've seen Ryan Reeves, obviously he's not the speed and skill, but a guy like Tyler Bertuzzi does use his body. He's a hard to play against player. You look at Max Domi, and it's the same way. So adding another guy like this that has potted 31 goals, and I believe the KHL season ends at the end of February, so he still has a tiny bit of time to get more total of these goals up. But it's going to be interesting to see how everything unfolds and where he ultimately signs, which is hopefully Toronto.
Yeah, I really hope to see him in a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey next year. I think there is 12 teams interested in bringing this guy over, so he's highly sought after here. He's worth the price of admission in my opinion, and I really do think if the Leafs could get this guy in the year where everybody thinks they're going to be in a cap crunch around 1 to 2 million, maybe on a 1 year deal, I think could really be a great option for this team. Then they can divvy out their money elsewhere where they need to fill the holes, pave the road in lack of a better phrase, and I really am excited to see this guy, see where he lands come this offseason, and really hope it is in Toronto.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I think it's ultimately once his season concludes in the KHL, he'll really start to narrow his teams down. I mean, we've seen the Patty Kane situation where he had, say, 6 teams, went down to 3, went down to 2, and ultimately signed with the Red Wings. So I could really see this. And I think the farther we get into this season and when the KHL season concludes, we're really going to start getting the race to the lottery to win them.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you. It's going to be really fun to watch come this offseason because it's always fun seeing the KHL guys come over to the NHL and see what they can do over on North American ice. And the same it goes here for Maxim Tsyplakov. Really hope he lands here in Toronto because he could be a great fit for this bottom six next season. But let us know down below in the comment section, what do you think about everything we've talked today? What do you think about Guentzel potentially going to the Oilers? What do you think about Maxim Tsyplakov potentially coming to the Leafs next season? Let us know down below. We're going to get in everybody's favorite topic here, and that is comment of the day. And the comment of the day today goes to Rob. He says, Casey, what are the Leafs going to do at the deadline? What's your thoughts? First of all, shout out to you, Rob. We see you down in the comment section all the time. Really appreciate your support on the videos. But, I mean, in my personal opinion, I think the Leafs are going to add defense. What about you, Mark?
I'm going to be honest. I think Treliving is going to pull a Ken Holland in the sense of he's looking to add at every position. We could see the Leafs maybe adding a depth six guy, maybe a fourth line center, fourth line winger, I think they're definitely going to look at adding a defenseman, and it still wouldn't shock me if they ended up doing a deal for a guy like Tanev and Markstrom, just to solid their, just kind of get their goaltenders figured out, get a new defenseman. I still think they'll add at each position.
Yeah, it could be really fun to see what happens come trade deadline. I'm really excited to see what Brad Schliving and the Leafs do here to kind of solidify this core going towards the latter half of the season. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to go down below, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Like we said, we're on the road for 3,000 subscribers, and we'd love to have you along the road with us. And while you're down there, make sure to leave a comment. You might be featured on the next comment of the day. And if you enjoy the NHL, make sure to check out this video. It's popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, KC, alongside my co-host, Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.